This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning. You're listening to the Mac and Jack Sports Show on Northeast Streaming Sports.
Sir, welcome to This Week in Sports with Mac, Jack, and Jim Jeffcoat. Thanks for joining us on this Memorial Day weekend as we celebrate those who died in the line to keep our life the way it is today. So thanks for joining us on this Sunday. Welcome in Jim Jeffcoat and Jack Hirsch as we do our favorite show of the week, guys. This Week in Sports. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. You guys have nice backdrops. You, Mac, with the banners hanging in the back. Jim, you, the replica of the Super Bowl trophy. I'm going to be moving. I'm going to arrange for a better backdrop, in the coming weeks.
Well, later, maybe at the end of the show, we'll talk about what kind of athlete Jack was when he was younger. But we'll wait.
Yeah, we need to talk about that because
we'll wait on that to the
fascinating things about
that. I learned something new about Jack every day. So, folks, Let's get to the NBA. We're talking about the AL Conference Finals. Boston pulls to 3-3 as they beat Miami 104-103. We were talking before the show, folks, and there was a big decision made by the coach at the end of the game. You can do one or two things. You can press the guy who's inbounding the pass. Of course, they're down in Miami's territory and Boston's territory where they can shoot the ball, and they chose to let the defender go and cover, which is not a bad thing. But I think at this time of the game, with 5 seconds left, you want to press the guy that's throwing the ball in. And me and Jim agree on this. Jack says, well, maybe not. But it let this guy actually cut to the rim, and the shot almost goes in. He just tips it back up and in. Now, if this guy was pressing him the whole time, one, he might get a shot to get a steal off the pass, and two, that guy wouldn't have had a clear shot at the ball on the backboard, Jim. I know you agree with me here.
I agree with you, definitely. I thought that, just like you said, you got to always shield them out, especially in a situation like that. Good morning, Rick. Me and Rick got something to talk to about Jack. We got to call Jack out on something. But
yes.
Right now we're talking about Boston, and I think the Heat are in trouble going back to us. Obviously Boston, but like we've said, they should have blocked out. They should have never let anybody get to the rim.
Yeah, I agree. Jack, your thought?
Yeah, I'm not going to be critical of what happened with the Celtics. I mean, they did miss the final shot. It came right back to Derek White. He put the ball in. What were the chances of that happening with 3 seconds to go? Now everyone is going to second guess, say, well, they should have boxed out. Are you really concentrating on boxing out in a situation like that? You don't want to give up an easy basket. That's the main thing. I mean, the chances are Boston was going to get off a shot no matter what. Are we going to be so naive to think Miami's going to smother Boston, that they're not going to get off a shot with 3 seconds? All they have to do is get the ball in bounds, and they're going to create something. With 3 seconds, they could have driven to the basket. They could have even driven to the basket from outside the three-point line. So Boston had options at that point in the game with different players. They missed a shot. White came under the basket like a streak of lightning, followed up, put the ball back in, and it was 1/10 of a second left to go. That's it.
But here's the thing too, Jack, you got to look at who made the last play a guard. There was no reason that a guard should get that much penetration. That's just like saying Jimmy Butler going to the hole and making the play, which he did and got him up. But that should never happen. That should never happen. They should have. And you saw he got beat. Robinson, he beat Robinson on that play. Robinson was chasing him, if you remember.
Well, he wasn't placed under the basket, White. He was cutting to the basket when he grabbed the ball. Okay? So, which makes it a little more difficult. We see those plays happen all the time during a game, but it's magnified because it was the last play of the game. It's nothing unusual. The putback is nothing unusual where a player streaks to the basket. I just think Miami could have been stationary thinking traditionally, well, we're going to box out. We're going to see no one goes here. We're going to see nowhere goes there. It's 3 seconds left. They want to avoid an easy basket. They don't want the ball thrown all the way on the inside. And I'm not going to be critical. Why do we always have to be critical, of a play like that? White made a great play. Why can't we just...
He did. Nobody's arguing that.
We're talking about what Miami did wrong. Like, oh, Miami's at fault here.
Well, it was lucky too. That ball came right to White, to him coming under. I mean, that ball could have went anywhere.
The chances of that happening were astronomical.
So if
astronomical,
no one you could be critical. No one you could be critical of the last play of the game, and I always have been. Remember that famous college game, Kentucky and Duke, that Christian Laettner shot at the end of the game? There were like a couple of seconds left. Kentucky took the ball Duke took the ball out all the way at the end of the court. And Rick Pitino had no one on the Duke player throwing the ball in. I think it was Grant Hill. And I'm critical of something like that. You're not having anyone holding their hands up to make it harder in the throw in. That's a strategic thing. I think you have every right to be critical of a play like that. But when a ball, hits off the rim, goes a certain way, and there's such little time left, and it goes right to the player, even though White did make the play, cutting and anticipating, I can't fault, the Boston coaching staff. The Miami.
Two plays come to mind. First of all, you're right about the Duke Kentucky play, but you have to think about the North Carolina State play too. And you also think about the Larry Bird play with Isaiah Thomas.
Well, the Isaiah said, but no, the problem with Isaiah Thomas, he admits he panicked. He rushed the pass in. He wasn't poised at that moment. He was so anxious to throw the ball in and get the game over with. He just didn't stop, take a deep breath, and analyze things. And Larry Bird, having the high basketball IQ that he does, just cut across, made the steal, then quickly got it to Dennis Johnson, and the Celtics stole a game and the series ultimately.
And Michael Jordan in the Utah game, in the playoff, in the championship game, the shot.
Yeah. So now if Boston, all this happens and Boston loses, does it really even matter? Does anybody talk about how great that game, what this game was, or does anybody really remember this play if Boston loses, guys?
That's a good question. I would think that people would, because it was a great game. I'm asleep by the halftime, but this game was interesting. What makes me like the Heat is because they're kind of like the Bad News Bear. They're misfits, but they play. And Boston's got some talent. A
lot of talent.
You look at it. They got a lot of talent, but they play hard, the Heat. And it was just like Jack said, that ball just bounced the perfect way for Boston. But the Heat are giving everything that they are going to the last drop of energy to beat Boston. Now, like I said, they're going to have problems going back to the Garden to try to win this. But you have to respect the Heat. Because
speaking of the Heat, close to a week ago, all we heard about Eric Spoelstra being one of the sharpest minds in basketball. Keith Engle was talking about the X factor. Eric Spoelstra, what a great, great coach. Now, Eric Spoelstra is not going to get fired even if they lose the next game. He's got a great relationship with Pat Riley. But if it was any other organization, any other team, and they blow a 3-0 lead 4 in a row, he might be gone.
It's happening.
I agree with that.
Good morning, Keith Engle from
Good morning, Keith. He's in a good mood. He's hopping around.
Good morning, guys. How are you?
Not too bad, Keith. What's going on over there?
I always come into Jack ripping me. I don't understand what's going on.
Well, you're the one who is telling us Eric Spoelstra is the X factor.
Because there was somebody on this show, Keith, that said this fight that is coming up July 29th would never happen.
No. I said it wasn't going to happen when ESPN said it was going to happen last November, because I have my own sources that let me know. No,
well, now
it's
your
not gonna
sources
happen
have
at that
changed.
point.
Huh?
Is this
No, eventually it did happen. It had nothing to do. I said it was probably going to happen this
Lord.
one late in July as they were talking finally.
Well,
is this
Keith,
the Frank Latarzo Jamie Pags fight?
I call
It
it
is.
completely right, Jim. That's the same thing as saying if I pick one team to win a championship one season and they didn't do it and they win it the next season, someone says, "You see, you were wrong." It's a new season.
Oh, here we
Even
go.
in boxing.
Let's talk to Keith. Let's talk. We'll get back to that later on in the show.
Keith, we're talking, of course, about the exciting game last night. The Heat come up short with a great play by the guard cutting to the basket. Me and Jim think there should have been pressure on the inbound pass. Jack says it's just, this is how basketball is, and they're trying to, there's not enough time left. So what are your thoughts on that?
I'm not a big fan of not pressuring the basketball. You see it all the time in college and in the NBA, and you should pressure the inbound play all the time.
And then you hear Reggie Miller. He said they should pressure the ball.
Yeah,
Reggie Miller said that.
He knows something about basketball, I think.
Yeah.
He knows a couple things.
His knowledge is up there with Jack's.
Yes.
Let's not get crazy here.
So
Well, I played zone when I coached, guys. So keep that in mind. My guys only played
I've seen
zone.
pictures of Jack dunking. It's
so Keith,
But no, Reggie Miller said they should pressure the ball. He did say that.
I would think. I mean, it's the end of the game. You want to keep them on their toes and whatever. It doesn't matter. It is what it is. Boston wins are going back to Boston.
Yeah, you got to give Boston credit.
You certainly do. It's a great game last night for sure.
3-3. Now, who's the pressure on? It's on the Heat, obviously. This is going to be a huge collapse.
First, no NBA teams ever come back from 3-0, I don't think.
Yeah, it's very true. And of course, there's a first time for everything.
Exactly.
Keith, I asked this question of Jack and of Jim. If Boston loses, Miami Heat wins, does any of this matter? Will anybody remember this game or this? When we look back on it, Boston won the championship. That's all we're going to be talking about.
I think this will be remembered as part of their run if they win. If they don't win, nobody's going to remember this. That's for sure. If they win, then I think it'll be remembered as part of the run. If they win it all. If they don't win it all, I don't think anybody will remember.
Wait. Carlton Fisk's home run against the Cincinnati Reds in 1975, Game 6. We remember that fondly, even though Boston lost the Game 7 and didn't win the series. Aaron Boone's homer against the Red Sox, where he won the pennant and then lost to the Marlins in the World Series. We still remember that.
I still think it's different. It just feels different to me, especially 75. You're talking about probably the greatest World Series game ever played. So it's a little different in my mind than, again, it's a big game, but I just, you don't have the iconic people in this game that you had in that 75 World Series. I mean, how many Hall of Famers are in there?
That is true. Yeah, you got a Hall of Famers. So you do make a good point there. My question is, now you got a rested Denver Nuggets team. Which of these teams match up better with them?
Here's the thing, too. We talked about it a little bit Friday, too. How much is too much rest? And that's going to be a consideration. I think either one of these teams, whoever wins Game 7, is going to have an extreme disadvantage, even a bigger disadvantage than would normally have in Denver because of the altitude to begin with, and you're coming in there gassed already. So I think it's going to have a tremendous effect on the beginning of the year.
Denver has home court advantage.
Correct. So first 2 games in Denver, that could be rough for whoever wins this series. I don't know.
One will be used to that is Derek White because that's where he grew up at.
Yeah. But if you're not there, are you accustomed to it just because you grew up there? I'm not sure if you've been taken away from that element.
Yeah, that's true. Look at Rick says Jack.
Hey man, I'm an athlete. He had me playing with Babe Ruth yesterday and Will Chamberlain. I'll tell you that I could go on the circuit and tell a lot of stories, make a lot of money here.
Rick you
never played with Babe Ruth. Hornets Wagner maybe, but not Babe Ruth.
So Keith, I think if it's Miami, I don't think it's going to be much of a series against Denver. I think Denver's too good. I think Boston gives them a better series.
Really?
I still think, I don't think Miami matches up well. I don't think
But here's the thing, and Keith, and Jack, you can correct me. I think the issue with both of these teams against Denver is length, because that's the big thing that Denver has, is that length. And I look at it, Murray's going to be a difficult matchup, and nobody's in the playoffs. Nobody's really stopped the Joker, if you think about it. And
even when he hasn't shot well at times, he's still a big part of their offense. So exactly. I don't think either one of these teams. You're right; they don't match. Nobody matches up with him because he's kind of a freak.
I mean, listen, I think Boston's just a better team than Miami. Miami's a gritty team.
Oh,
Boston's got a lot more talent.
Listen,
and I think
that's why I'm not really blaming Spolstra, by the way.
Listen, and I think
Boston is beat up right now.
Boston's got some tremendous shooters. I mean, I'll put Tatum up against Murray. I think they're pretty equal. The only problem they got is Jokic. They don't have no team.
That's what it said. And if they think the center from Boston is going to be able to stop him, they're kidding it. Marcus Smart might give him some problems, and I'll tell you why. First of all, he's a really good defensive player. He can't guard the Joker, but he can be that X factor if he's on and is shooting. So they're going to have to
yesterday, Adebayo and Butler shot less than 25% from the field. I don't think that happens again. I look for Jimmy Butler to have a very big game 7. It doesn't mean Miami's going to win the game, but I look for him to have a very big game. He scored 15 points in the fourth period. Keep that in mind. He finally woke up. And when he woke up, he played like a superstar at the end, and he ignited the Miami comeback over there. What would we be saying about Jimmy Butler this morning if Miami did win the game? We'd be talking about him like he's a superstar after playing poorly the first 3 periods, 15 points in the fourth period, hitting the 3 clutch foul shots at the end when he got fouled.
It's Jim Derringer here, the ringmaster, giving you an update here from vacation here in Vermont, the Stanley Cup playoff.
What do we got going on here? Somebody got YouTube on over there somewhere?
I don't have it on.
Sorry.
I'm like, what the heck?
Sorry, that was me. I had a file that opened up. I clicked that.
I kind of wanted. Listen, guys, it reminds me once I got a party line. This was bad when I was young. A guy and a girl were getting into like a disagreement, an argument with his girlfriend, and all of a sudden he said, she says something to him, and it was set up so perfectly for me to make a cute remark to tick her off. And then a guy says, "Who said that? Who said that?" And she says, "It was your friend."
There you go.
And then I hung the phone up. I was young then. It was too.
You're still young, Jack.
It was so great to pass up. It was so funny to pass up.
Well, let's get to some of the news Keith brings in with us. Of course, the Yankees, Pats, and some college football. Yanks are still in third place. Do you agree that people are saying that Harrison Bader is elite center fielder? Is he elite center fielder, Keith?
Elite? I don't know. I mean, he's got to stay in the field a little more.
Elite. Good center fielder. When you talk about elite,
that's what I'm saying.
I mean, elite means one of the top 5 in the major league.
That's what they're saying. Yankee fans are saying that.
Which Yankee fans are saying, "Well, Mac, your friends are maybe saying it." Johnny come lately don't follow it much. Elite. They were probably saying about Aaron Hicks in the beginning.
We're fired up this morning. I don't know what's
elite
that game got us fired up this morning.
I mean, come on.
Harrison Bader's a really good player when he's healthy. Is he an elite player? No, he's not Mike Trout. Right, so
that's elite. Mike Trout, man. Harrison, Bader.
There you go. Listen,
Mike Trout.
I didn't say I said that, Jack. I'm just asking Keith if he agreed with that comment. That's all.
What Jack had for breakfast today? Good grief!
No. I mean, we got to call.
He's all excited.
Mac and Jim out on there.
I'm going to challenge him to a fencing match when this is all over. That's what.
Oh, a duel.
So Severino did look good last game, so that's something anyway as far as
both
he looked great.
He pitched very well. He pitched last weekend as well. When his first start last Sunday, he pitched well. So that's a great sign for the Yankees and the Yankee fans. And no, Severino's not an elite pitcher until he stays healthy.
Keith, we're going to friends too eventually. So, all right. So Aaron Boone says he's not changing after that 1-game suspension. Keith,
I wouldn't.
He's putting his foot down, being the tough guy he is. I don't get it. It's I think it's just nonsense. It doesn't really.
Let me ask you guys this: you think he wants to get on the good side of Yankee fans? A lot of fans have been calling for Aaron Boone to be fired. So he's showing this side of him, his combative side. He'll fight with the umpires. He'll stand up for his players, and they'll take kind of a liking to him that way. What do you think?
This isn't new. Aaron Boone's been combative with umpires for the last few years. He's had some big run-ins with them. He stands up for his players probably too much, to be honest with you. So, I don't think this is a big change in him trying to codify or coddle up to the Yankee fans, because the guys who don't like him, that's not going to change.
Regardless, they're not going to like him anyway.
Yeah. What are the Yankees going to do with Josh Donaldson when he comes back? Because LeMahieu has been playing third base and doing quite well there. Okay, doing quite well. So what's the story of Josh Donaldson?
Well, he'll probably get a chance to, play a bit until he gets hurt again or whatever. It's gonna hurt the rest of the infield because you're gonna see less of Glaber. You're gonna see LeMahieu moving around the infield again until Donaldson proves he can't get around on fastballs anymore, which is kind of not going to change. Right. So personally, I would like to see them part ways like they did with Hicks, but again, it's probably not going to happen. We'll see.
What's interesting about the AL East is that every team is over 500. I mean, and if you look at them in the last 10 games, all of them are 6-4.
Yeah.
That's how competitive it is.
Yeah.
Red Sox still are surprising the heck out of me. They're still playing good baseball.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, Stanton's supposed to be coming back in about 3 weeks, they're saying, Keith. I mean, is that something we need, that little shot of power, or do we have too much power, not enough hitting? I think it's probably the latter.
I think Stanton, when he's healthy and making contact, is definitely a plus for this team. But and he's definitely gonna play. Mm-hmm. The problem is or maybe. If he plays better, he hits better when he plays in the field, and when he plays in the field, he gets hurt. That's the problem. And if he plays in the field, I don't know if he can play left field in Yankee Stadium either. But you're going to waste Judge in left field? I'm not.
Yeah. No. My question to you, Keith, is who are you going to trade? You're going to have to make some trades. But what do you trade for? I should ask.
Starting pitching, the bullpen's has got issues because of injuries. Left field's still a problem. So there's places with holes to fill for sure. But the problem is you don't have a lot of trade chips. If you don't want to trade the kids, I've said this all along. I know you guys are in love with Glaber, but Glaber is a most likely guy to get traded if they would decide to try to fill one of these holes.
Now, Glaber Torres has a very good glove. He hits well enough. I don't think you improve yourself trading Glaber Torres unless you get a frontline starting pitcher. A truly quality relief pitcher. You don't trade a Glaber Torres. No way.
You're not going to get anything of value back unless you. Who else are you going to trade to get something of value?
Well, sometimes the best trades are the ones you don't make. Sometimes
I agree.
Glaber Torres, just stay pat.
So we're going to go back.
Really a good player.
So we're going to go into the playoffs and try to beat the Astros with the same team we've lost to them.
And just Alan said it, the Rangers are playing really well. They're 8-2 in the last 10 games. They won the first 2 games against Baltimore, who's been playing exceptional. So you can't say that. You don't know if it's going to be the Astros. And the Rangers beat the Yankees. So
I would still say the Astros are the favorite in the American League. Until somebody beats them, they're the favorite.
Listen. You got until the king is dethroned, he's still the king. Keith
and Alan. I know Alan's all excited about the Rangers, as he should be. They're playing well, but DeGrom's going to get his 12 starts, and they'll be excited down there in Texas.
I do have some breaking news with the Yankees. Right now, Rondon is throwing. So, don't worry about.
The baseballs are tantrums. What's he actually throwing?
He's got a baseball.
I don't even know if this is a real person, this guy. I haven't even seen him, for crying out loud.
Well, I was going to get to New England Patriots.
Whatever happened to Frankie Montes, by the way? Isn't he their 5th starter?
Yeah, he's another ghost in the system.
The past news is pretty slow, Keith. I did find out that the penalty that you guys got for hitting during OTAs, Judge was behind that, of course. So that's why.
Of course you. Well, listen.
So
there is some news. Raquan McMillan tore his Achilles in the OTA. He's out here. He played well last year in spots. He was a decent part of that defense, and that's going to be a hole they need to fill. So
but speaking about that hitting in OTAs. That happened to, obviously, Seattle and the Dallas Cowboys. So Mike McCarthy said they're not doing any teamwork.
No.
Because he said that's the reason. And Belichick, what is his second time he's been caught for that, right, Keith?
I think so, yeah. Again, God forbid we should hit in football practice.
I don't understand this about football because I didn't play the game on that level with contact. But I compare it to boxing. If you never spar, you're not going to be nearly as sharp for the fight itself. You have to spar. There's got to be some contact sparring. Isn't it the same in football? If you're not going to have contact drills, how do you start playing the season?
I agree.
That's why the regular season has become part of the preseason right now.
Yeah, that's right. Even Andy Reid said it's going to become flag football.
Yep.
I'm under the impression, and correct me if I'm wrong, the early weeks of the NFL season, it's as if the teams are playing themselves into shape. The first few weeks.
It's getting acclimated, your body acclimated.
Acclimated. That's a better term.
That's more of it. And getting acclimated to hitting because your body's got to get used to getting hit. And that's why we see the uptick in injuries because your body's not used to that kind of punishment.
Right.
Yeah. So, Keith, in college football, it looks like the Jets took the wrong Wilson at quarterback. His younger brother, Zach Wilson's younger brother, it's Isaac Wilson.
I think that's right. Yeah.
He signed with you. He's going to Utah. So, Jack, the Jets are about 3 years behind.
Zach Wilson is looking sharp during the workouts and training camp. So,
he looks good.
Aaron Rodgers is the man. He's absolutely the man. But in an emergency, I'm fully
Zach is going to come out and lose the game.
Done. He's learning from the master.
Zach Wilson looked good at the beginning too, Jack, with those passes across his body too. Nobody was
Go to the combines, which are wasted time.
Right.
Go to the combines.
Exactly. And this is just
combines have Malik Willis is the greatest thing going until the teams, came
Dan, what's his name? Oworowski or whatever. Said that the Jets are one of the 8 teams that can win the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I don't agree.
Well, one particular team stands in their way, going to the Super Bowl in the AFC, but
I know the Patriots.
For another time.
Yes. Any other college news you got for us, Keith?
Not a lot. It's kind of quiet. I guess the biggest news that's happened recently was Bo Schembechler's son, who had joined Jim Harbaugh's staff at Michigan, left after about 1 day because of some old posts he'd put up, on social media. So
that's what gets me. How old are those darn posts already? If they're 20 years old, I don't want to know from them. Let's get an explanation.
Happened. Listen, this again, we talk about the world we live in today, and you're responsible for everything you ever said in your life.
I'm never gonna advance past this show, big time media, because they're gonna come to some of the clips here of what I said, what you said, What Jim said.
I offend some
What
people
Matt said.
on the air, probably. So
I offend myself sometimes. But Joe Kamalis, who's been a long-time special teams coach, and this is the weirdest thing. He's at Texas. He's a special. That's what they put, assistant to the special teams coach down there at Texas, which is going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. Yeah, and Sarkisian is probably under more pressure than we had.
He's under a lot of pressure for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, there's big news too. I mean, right now, Arch Manning is not the quarterback of Texas. It's McEwen because in the
you know what?
Spring drills.
That's good because it's going to challenge the other kid to get better.
Yeah,
he's going to have to play well
to
keep that position because when you look in that room, walk in that room, and Arch Manning's in there, and if you don't notice, Arch Manning's family told him that he cannot have that NIL money until he becomes a starter.
I didn't know
Arch Manning's family could make that money up, Jim, too.
Yeah, they could.
They becomes a starter.
I don't
let's say he has a big year for Texas and decides he wants to hang around an extra year. What does that mean for Arch Manning? I can't imagine Arch Manning being a backup 2 years in a row. 1 year could do him a lot of good because technically he supposedly should be a high school student right now still.
But here's the thing, too, and keep with this is the other one. There's a guy out of Scottsdale, Arizona. His name is Dominique. Not Riola, but it's Dominique Riola's nephew. And they're in Nebraska. Both the brothers played in Nebraska.
Mm-hmm.
He signs with Georgia. And now they're saying that he's truly better than Arch Manning. Nobody knows. He's got more upside than Arch Manning.
He was rated a better quarterback coming into this class than Arch Manning. He was the highest ranked quarterback for sure.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, let's welcome Robert Butler to This Week in Sports, which means Keith's on his way out to do his show.
All right. I'm tagging Robert in, and I'm tagging
you, Keith. All right. Have a good day.
Have a good Sunday, guys.
Keith Engle joining us on This Week in Sports does every Sunday, and so does the man breaking all the big stories on This Week in Sports. Robert Butler, how you doing this morning, Robert?
Hey, good. Crazy game last night, wasn't it?
Yes, we were talking about that.
I mean, wow. Do the Celtics win, Robert? Before we even start, did the Celtics win this?
Yeah, I think they win it. I think they're going to pull off the 04 Red Sox and come back 03.
All right.
But does Miami regroup mentally? Do you think they're there mentally and they're clawing and it's a really tough game?
I think they'll regroup mentally, but physically, their defense looked a tick off last night. They're running on fumes and adrenaline. That's my read of the Miami team.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens. I mean, it'd be interesting. It was a great series. I don't think anybody expected.
Oh yeah,
it's
a classic.
Robert, of course, the biggest free agent out there since he's been let go by the Cardinals is DeAndre Hopkins. Big money. There's a lot of teams that say, of course, everybody wants DeAndre Hopkins. Is there any team out there that could afford him right now?
I don't think it's going to be about the money with him. He's made over $100 million. There was a video CBS put out. This was probably 3 or 4 weeks ago. And he's doing gestures about, which teams would you like to go to? And he mentioned he would like to play essentially by doing gestures. He never physically said anything, but he did a gesture like he would love to go to Kansas City or Buffalo.
Yeah, he had 5 quarterbacks that he liked.
I hear him linked to Cleveland, a reunion with Deshaun Watson, where he had his greatest success with the Houston Texans.
He's a total free agent. If I'm Deshaun Watson, I do ask him, hey, man, I try to sell him on that because I think they're going to be a really good team. They're right there on the frontier of doing something like that. With Amari Cooper, that would be good. Here's my thing, though. There's players for Buffalo that are recruiting him, except for Stephon Diggs. They had Von Miller, Deion Dawkins. Stephon Diggs is really into Stephon Diggs. Maybe
That's
wrong
Tim's
about
type
this.
of player, an eye guy.
Yeah.
Stephon, everyone's recruiting DeAndre Hopkins, but a fellow receiver.
Yeah.
Stephon.
You know why he's not recruiting him? He's not very good at ping pong. He needs somebody to teach him ping pong. But we'll talk
about that later.
You get Forrest Gump out of retirement, Jim.
Do you see DeAndre Hopkins redoing his Mounties old, maybe taking it over 2 years? Do you see him working with another team, or do you think Hopkins wants what he wants?
Yeah, I haven't heard anything about Contro. He's been released, so I mean, it could start all over, guys.
But let me ask you this question, Robert. In the last 2 years, obviously, 2 years ago he had the knee injury, correct? And he didn't play all the season. Last year he had the suspension, and he didn't play all of the season. And maybe the Cardinals know something. Which DeAndre Hopkins are you getting the one 3 years ago, or are you getting the one now? And can he be effective?
Well, everything's got to be contingency upon a physical. Did you guys hear about Jimmy Garoppolo? Had a foot injury.
Yes, and they had a clause in there. If he can't play because of a sore foot, they don't owe him money.
Right. That had to be redone is what I was reading this morning. So you really have to do your due diligence. You know, Tennessee got burned on Julio Jones.
Yep.
We thought it was just a hamstring. I thought at the time maybe he's just mailing it in because he's got football blues. Atlanta's not that good. Then you find out that hamstring injury was legit, and Tennessee got up a second-round pick. I think a lot of people learned from that. Hey, look, man, this guy's post-30. Like you said, he's coming off injury. Bring him in for the right price just to get a ring. And that's what he sounds like anyways.
Guys, when you're a free agent like DeAndre Hopkins, it's what does he want? Is he willing to be one of the receivers in the wide receiver room, get absorbed with the other wide receivers, go to a place like the Baltimore Ravens where he doesn't have to be the guy, he could share co-billing with OBJ? Or does he want to go somewhere like the New York Giants? He could be the main receiver for the Giants. Okay, it's what he wants.
But the problem you have is you haven't signed Saquon Barkley yet.
That's what I was just going to say.
Saquon Barkley is the most important signing for the Giants.
You allow the Saquon Barkley, but you can't allow it to hold up the team at this point. They can franchise tag Saquon Barkley, and
they already have.
They want.
But do you have the money? Do you have the money in the till to sign Hopkins?
Exactly. Here's the problem with Hopkins is, like we were saying, Jack, you do not know what you're getting. You saying this guy was great 3 years ago, but as of present, he hasn't been but just the guy. And you always got to worry about how long is he going. Maybe he's at the tail end of his career as opposed to, the middle part of it.
But you could count on him statistically. I think he has the third least drops of all wide receivers over a lengthy period of time.
I saw that.
Okay.
Robert, what do you think about Devontae Adams and his photographer? Of course, he pushed him last year. It looks like it's finally coming to trial or to a head, if you will. Does Devontae Adams just pay this and get rid of it, or does he take it? Does he fight it?
Yeah, it reminds me of Dennis Rodman kicking that cameraman. Not as bad looking as that. In 1997, he ended up paying the guy $200,000. No, of course, the NBA suspended him 11 games. Adams had if he got suspended or anything. He wasn't fined or anything for that. So that's crazy, guys. I thought maybe they fined him something. It's just a bad look for the league, But yeah, I think he'll settle that thing.
Let me ask you this question. They said that there's a possibility that Devontae Adams would be on the market. I like to take him, and any team would like to have him.
Yeah, he's way more. As far as quality, if you had to pick one, and you would probably be able to get some compensation there for Hopkins. That would be really good.
Yes.
A lot more than Adams and Hopkins. Excuse me.
Compensation.
Oh yeah.
So I heard there was some unrest there. Adams did come out and say he loves his coach and all that. But before that, there was a lot of back and forth between him and the organization itself. So I'm not sure what's going on over there. Derek Carr. John Gruden is brought into the Saints to help Derek Carr, the offense. Yeah. Why does Derek Carr still need John Gruden? I mean, he's been around the league a few years now. I mean, he can't make it there without John Gruden.
No, I think there's a Dennis Allen connection. Dennis Allen to Sean Payton. Sean Payton to John Gruden, going back to '97 with Gruden being the offensive coordinator of the Eagles, and Payton was a quarterback coach. So you got the Dennis Allen connection there through that. You know how it is, Jim. It's a lot of, I know this guy who knows this guy. And then, of course,
You're right.
You're so right. They're putting in somewhat of a West Coast type of offense there, down there. I could see that. Plus, Gruden wants to get back into the game, man.
I agree. Yeah.
There's a investigation, a Twitter investigation on a referee.
Yes.
It's Eric. Let me see if I get his name. I had his name here.
He has a burner account.
Burner account. There's an investigation. He's a Celtics fan, supposedly. He gave a bad. He didn't call a foul on LeBron or something.
LeBron again.
Is there anything to this?
LeBron again.
What are they gonna fire the guy? I mean, he really. There's no proof he did anything wrong, is there?
Yeah, his name's Eric Lewis. It's supposedly his brother. It reminds me of this story. Brian Colangelo from the 76ers a few years ago had 5 burner accounts, and he's leaking out all kinds of crazy information about the Sixers. They end up finding out about it, and they were his wife's accounts, air quotes, that he was using. And he was putting out all this information. This guy's arguing stuff. He knows, and he's actually following his wife. This ref is following his wife, who's a coach at like George Mason Women's. Wow. So a Twitter user put all that together, and now the NBA is investigating it. So I don't know if there's anything to it. I think a lot of players and executives have Twitter burner accounts, man. But you just can't put too much information where people can find out that it's a burner account.
I mean,
it makes sense.
Who's investigating this stuff? I mean, I don't know. But
Elon Musk, he would say he was going to get rid of the burner accounts.
Right. I don't know how do you do that, though?
I don't either.
Yeah, I guess everybody has to show some kind of phone number. That guy's done everything he said he's going to do, Elon, with Twitter. And doing it fast, too.
Yeah, it's true.
That is true.
Detroit Lions, another player under investigation. Why is there so much? Why Detroit? Why is all this gambling happening in Detroit, Robert?
No, I don't know if it's just that. I think everybody these guys are all competitors. Brett Favre said, the coach for his name is slipping my mind, for Atlanta when he was drafted there, says, hey, I got $500. Whoever can take out the quarterback.
Jerry, what's his name?
Glanville.
Huh?
Glanville? No, I don't think it was.
Glanville. Yeah.
Glanville,
NFL not for long. Remember, he used to say that all the time.
Yeah.
No, but that was part. Listen, that was part of the culture. Even growing up, you'd hear high school football players. The goal was knock the quarterback out of the game, and the coaches loved you. It's a badge of honor. You're the start of game. If you in the NFL too, if you can knock the quarterback out of the game, you're defensive end. You're the start of game. I mean, it's a badge of honor.
But that is true
at the time.
Yeah. Hey, it translates to today, right? They get so much money if. So much incentive if you sack the quarterback, if you hit the quarterback.
Right. And there's props too, guys. There's props on FanDuel and stuff. So it's hard to say. Some guys are just more, low key about it, and then others and others are too blatant is the word. Calvin Ridley was pretty blatant about it. And That's why he got suspended for a whole year. So I don't think it's just Detroit. I think it's just the culture of the game.
And it was Jameson as his
Williams, yeah. He's
talking.
having a good camp too, from what I read.
Yeah.
He came a long way from one year to the next. I think he got 6-game suspension.
Do you think that is the sleeper team of the year? Because it's going to be probably against them in Minnesota, right?
Well, if you guys look at the over and under, the Patriots are like 7.5, and I looked at their schedule. Man, they are really being overlooked. The Patriots are really big. I think they're probably, as of today, guys, I think the Patriots will finish second in the AFC.
Who will finish first?
Oh, Buffalo.
Whoa. Hold on here. Where do you go with the Patriots?
Jets are probably finished.
Wait. Who's finishing third, Rob?
Miami. I don't think.
You're saying the Jets are coming in last place with Aaron Rodgers. I mean, and I'm the one here on this show who always showed you a lot of respect. And I got to reevaluate my
first 6 games are a nightmare, Jack.
And they're coming last.
Well, they still may finish 10-7. It's going to be a dogfight of the division. Have you seen their schedule, Jack? It's crazy hard.
It is hard. But here's my question. Is the NFC East better than the AFC East at this point?
Man, as a whole, I mean, you got to look at the quarterback there for what was it, Howell? Yeah. I mean, you got to say the AFC East, guys.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah, look at the quarterback. You know, Tua had the highest QBR in the NFL for like 7-8 games in a row. Look at that Vic Fangio defense. Look at Jalen Ramsey added. But the thing about it, Hurts or Tua is liable to get hurt, you know? And Robert, Mike White, what's he good for? He has bad halves. You know how you say he's hot and cold game by game? He's hot and cold half by half.
Robert, I think you've been hanging out with Keith way too long picking the Patriots.
Keith, the Patriots with Gonzalez, they got a real court. Guys, their games are really close. Look how good Cincinnati played down the stretch last year. They had Cincinnati tied in the fourth quarter. Cincinnati was hanging on by threads. This was on that very cold.
Robert, that was last year.
There is better than, they didn't have a coordinator last year, Jack.
Robert, there is no way. Wait, Jack, you can have him after I'm done with it. There is no way the Patriots finish above the Jets and the Dolphins. There's no way. There is no way.
That's what I'm saying. We're all sleeping on the Patriots.
Oh,
okay. I woke up. I've got my Patriot coffee mug, guys. I'm telling you.
Go ahead, Jack.
The only road games the Cowboys have against the AFC East is Miami, and they play New England at home. They play the Jets at home. Yeah. So I think they play Buffalo and Buffalo. Those are the two, and Buffalo's going to be tough. And Miami's going to be tough in Miami. It's later in the year, but you're right. But I think the NFC East is going to be better.
Sam Howell at quarterback.
Yes, I think that the whole league is going to be better than the AFC East. That's just my opinion on it.
Yeah. Wow. Well, they may be tight. You never know. I mean, I think those two. I think the North is very competitive. AFC North. Yes. I mean, there's going to be a lot of It's going to be a lot of tiebreakers, guys, to get that. I tell you what, whoever loses the South, they're going to make the playoffs next year. The AFC South.
I agree.
Yeah. It's just dogfights.
I think that's a weak division.
Very weak. Yeah.
There's a couple things that I didn't put down. I want to get your thoughts on.
That's fine.
Andy Reid isn't going to have a fullback this year. That's one position he won't have on a team. He's going to let the tight, the fullback, running back. Of course, the tight ends will be in place of the running backs. That's really nothing new. Teams have done that before, using the tight end as a H-back or a fullback. So that's one of the things he said. The other thing he said, which I agree with, is that if these rule changes keep coming, we're going to end up with flag football. So what's your thoughts on those two things, having a tight end?
Yeah, Mike. I actually got a chance to talk to Mike Westhoff on my program about a few months ago. Yeah, he wrote a book. He used to be the special teams guy for the Jets.
And now he's at Denver.
Yeah, and he's back now with Sean Payton at Denver. And he made a good point. He says we really can't do as much on special teams because they moved up the kickoff. And I got to thinking, with all the technique now that's been used, I think they should probably go the other way. I think Andy Reid is right. Because everybody can't get a great quarterback. Other teams have to have an opportunity to win the game in another phase of the game, which is special teams, So he's got a point, man. I mean, you don't want to make it where it's all about offense and it's all about super, super safety. I mean, if it's that much about safety, why you have all these Thursday night games?
Special teams are still important, but they're not as important as they were before because field position isn't as important as it's traditionally been because we're playing in a league now, the NFL, where they stretch the field. It's become a pass-happy league or quarterback-happy league. Quarterbacks with legs, they could pick up 15 yards at the snap of a finger. So if you get field position, you punt the ball, the other team has it, let's say, on their 7-yard line, chances are it's not going to be too much of a difference between the 7-yard line and the 20-yard line because of the nature of the game, the way it's played now as opposed to years ago.
I don't know if I agree with that, Jim. Do you agree with that? I mean, if you're at the 7-yard line, you're not going to – there's certain plays you call for certain places on the field.
That's true. I think you still have – just like you said, I think you still have – field position is going to dictate what plays you run. And I really believe that.
No, I agree with that, but chances are teams get out of that hole and they don't have to punt the ball.
Not as much as you would think. The percentages, and what they always look at is what percentages are you at, like you said, the 7-yard line, what percentages at the 25-yard line, what percentages if you're on the plus side.
But if you have a Lamar Jackson at quarterback, chances are there'll be a designed running play right off the bat, and he's going to, scamper for 10 yards.
And defenses would be ready for that, Jack. As a defense, you base most of your calls off field position. You change your defenses as the field position changes. You expect them to run down by the 7-yard line. That's why when they do pass, it's such a surprise. So you, as a defensive coordinator, you're gonna have plays in there to stop them from running the ball on 1st and 7, as opposed to throwing the ball.
And Lamar Jackson said in the new offense they're designing, he'll be throwing the ball more than running.
Yeah,
right. There's an interesting book coming out. I don't know if anybody knows about it. It's a John Madden book. Will Ferrell will be playing John Madden, which is going to be pretty interesting. Of course, John Madden. I guess is he playing the coach or the announcer too? I don't know. But John Madden, as you know, Robert, was huge with the Raiders. He had some really crazy teams out there. He was a crazy coach. And that's a time that the Raiders really had good teams back in the 70s. So it'll be interesting to see that. I'm definitely going to check it out. I don't know.
It's kind of funny when you speak of Madden, and I'm not saying personality-wise, but coaching tree-wise is a lot similar to Andy Reid. He was an offensive lineman, and he worked at San Diego State too. He worked there, and there's things like that, and they grew up in that kind of system. And Madden, now I'm not saying that Andy Reid is Madden. That's not what I'm saying. But they have a lot of similarities on their paths.
Right. That's cool. Robert, any thoughts before you go on the NBA? Of course, Boston and the Miami game.
Yeah.
Any thoughts you got on that?
Let's see. Sent me something. This Adrian Griffin. I think that's a pretty good hire there with Milwaukee. It's funny. Yeah, his path is almost verbatim as Derwin Ham. Both of these guys, undrafted guys into the NBA, 1996, both been assistants since 2008. I kind of like that path rather than just getting a guy who just played as a point guard, like a Steve Nash or Jason Kidd or somebody. These marginal players that come in, they lurk long-time assistant jobs. I noticed that Darwin Ham really had the the Lakers buying in the defense. This could be a great hire for Milwaukee. The more I look into it, I think that's a better path. You don't necessarily have to be a player. That seems like former players really work out well more than the NBA and just about any other sport if you really think about it.
Yeah. Let me ask you this question, Robert. That's a good point you bring up. Do you think the NBA is going to more of an emphasis on learning to play defense? By that, I mean getting players that can play the zones and the man defenses that they require.
Look at the Final Four teams there, Miami, Boston. You're really starting to see that here. Like teams that are hitting mid-range jump shots are getting farther into it. Look at that Toronto team. Golden State, as bad as they've been, they really pick up their defense come playoff time. Mm-hmm. He gets guys, their interior defense is really good, So I think so. It's getting back to that instead of just taking a bunch of threes and not playing any kind of defense, So, and that's a good thing. It's a really
it is a good thing.
That's my biggest worry with Denver. They're not a real good defensive team. They're more an offensive team. We'll see what happens when they play off. Robert, thanks for coming in as you always do. Enjoy your Memorial Day weekend. Go to them cookouts. And
I will do. Will do.
Robert Butler from Skope comes with every Sunday. Check him out on his Facebook page, Instagram, TikTok, whatever he's on. Skope, and you'll find Robert Butler. Thanks again, Robert. Have a good weekend, my friend.
Have a good show, guys.
Okay, right.
See ya.
There you go, folks. Robert Butler in for every week on This Week in Sports. We're going to take a quick promo break. We'll be back after that, folks. Stick with us, and we'll be right back.
He was a giant, and he was a cowboy. Now these two former rivals have joined forces to bring you the most insightful, perceptive, and controversial sports talk podcast in America. Former Dallas Cowboys defensive end Jim Jeffcoat locks horns with former New York Giants wide receiver Byron Williams. And now, here's Byron Williams and Jim Jeffcoat. If you like the sweet science, get ready to talk boxing on the Gloved Fist podcast with top boxing writers Frank Latirzo and Jack Hirsch. Frank, a former amateur boxer out of Philadelphia, writes for NY Fights and can be seen on the Boxing Channel. Jack, an amateur boxer who competed in the New York Golden Gloves, was a 6-term president of the Boxing Writers Association. And now, here's Frank Latirzo and Jack Hirsch. It just might be the greatest sports franchise in the history of sports. A place where legends are made, and there's always something to talk about. Get ready to immerse yourself in pinstripes. Start spreading the news, hosted by Paul Semendinger and E.J. Fagan, a couple of doctors with a prescription for Yankee fever. And now, here's Dr. Paul Semendinger and Dr. E.J. Fagan. Get ready to start spreading the news.
See right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboys fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this team.
I'm ready. I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it to his face. Oh, I'm from Brooklyn. Hey, get any...
This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
Everyone, and welcome back to This Week in Sports with Mac, Jack, and Jim Jeffcoat. Near the end of the show, folks, we're going to give you our predictions on the AFC West. So stay tuned for that. Thanks for joining us again on this Memorial Day weekend with Mac, Jack, and Jim Jeffcoat. Guys, let's do a little bit of baseball games yesterday. Yankees won 3-2 versus the Padres. DJ LeMahieu was 2 for 3 with 2 RBIs. Falafa, he goes 1 for 4 with the game-winning single, that the walk-off single. As I said before, Severino pitched really well. Philadelphia beat Atlanta 2-0. Byron Stott 1 for 2 with 1 RBI. Trey Turner goes 2 for 3. Zach Wheeler, 5 innings, 2 hits, 7 strikeouts. And Craig Kimbrell for the Phillies got his 400th save. Pretty big monumental thing for
only the eighth relief pitcher to get up to 400.
So what do you think, Jack? Is he a Hall of Fame candidate? I know they only got
no, not to me. It's not.
All right, okay. I'm just asking.
No, but you want to know something in this day and age? People could point to stats, and what happens if he gets up to 500 saves? You're talking about only 3 more seasons. Then how do you keep him out logically, statistically? But when you live through an era, you get a feel for the type of player someone is, as opposed to just stats. And I don't look at Craig Kimbrell as being any more than a very good, solid reliever. He's not a Hall of Fame caliber player to me. But once again, you point to the longevity factor. You could make a case for him.
Well, the Hall of Fame has changed a lot. There's not a lot of, huge players going in lately. There are very good players going in lately. So maybe so. We'll see what happens.
See, I think that's happening in every league, though, not just baseball.
Yeah. Well,
they got a veterans committee in football, Jim, that would possibly throw your name out there. They have it in baseball. They have the veterans.
Eventually, I'll be up again. I was nominated when I retired, but
how does that process work in the NFL as far as
the Veterans Committee looks at their records at the time they left the game? Because obviously there's a lot of things that happen in all sports that change over. There's different eras, and that's what we see in basketball, baseball, and football. And then you just mentioned it in boxing. There's different eras, so they have to look at where were they at when they played.
Well, they've changed in boxing the timeline voting. It's something like the early 1990s to the present time, something around that area. I can't remember the exact date, but when we get our ballots, it's kind of different eras now.
Yeah, because you look at Drew Pearson. He was voted in by the seniors committee. And then this year with Leroy Jordan, he was a seniors committee.
Right? Yeah.
And Everson Walls, who's played for the Cowboys and Giants, will be probably a senior. He'll probably be in his 70s or maybe mid-70s.
Yeah.
He'll get in. So that's how it works. And the Veterans Committee is different than the other committees to put current players in.
Okay, back to baseball for right now. We got Rob Manfred. They said that voting on the A's moving to Vegas will take place when the owners meet the 13th through the 15th of June. He also could threaten Milwaukee with relocation as part of a push for ballpark updates. So I guess they're going through the MLB right now trying to update some stadiums. And if Milwaukee refuses to do that, they could threaten Milwaukee.
But here's the question: where do they move to?
That's a good question, Jim. That's a very good question.
There's always a city willing to take a baseball team. I'm going to give you an example. I'm just throwing a city out there that I'm not overly familiar with Birmingham, Alabama. If they were offered the Milwaukee Brewers, could they support that team?
I don't know if they support them, but they would take them.
Well, they're not going to take them unless they could support the team with the people turn out.
The problem is that, and maybe we're getting older, but they're regional teams. The Brewers, you always think of the Brewers, Milwaukee, you see certain teams.
Yeah.
This is not like when the Dodgers moved to LA. It's a lot different these days.
That's true.
I don't know if that's going to happen because sometimes you got regional loyalties.
Well, the A's, I mean, the A's aren't the Raiders. Will the A's draw in Las Vegas?
That's a good question. I think they're going to struggle in Las Vegas. Don't you?
I do.
I think who got the raw deal on both of these teams is the Oakland area.
Well, a lot of tourists come into Las Vegas, so a night out at the ball game, I mean, would be an evening.
That's not on their mind, though. That's the problem you have because there's a lot of distractions.
Yeah,
in sports.
Right. I mean, the Raiders.
You're talking about putting a basketball team in Vegas.
No,
other than women's.
They'll get all the basketball. All the sports will be in Vegas eventually. I know the Raiders have a following. I mean, the Oakland Raiders are.
But that's a long time following.
Right.
Oakland used to be really good in baseball, and we all know that. But I mean, they don't. Do they have the following that the Raiders do?
I don't think so. In fact, when Oakland A's were good.
How does this happen to Oakland? Why aren't they supporting their teams? I know the Athletics are terrible losers. I know that. But they lose the Raiders. They lose the Athletics. Could the city have done anything to prevent it?
And they lost the Golden State Warriors.
Right.
Yeah.
Economics. They lost all those. Used to be a big shipping port. If I don't know if you know that, but they used to bring the big ships in there. And when they lost those contracts, it changed the whole city of Oakland. It went down. And they don't have the money to do the things they didn't do, and they couldn't upgrade things because obviously, I don't know. I know you guys didn't, but Oakland was an awful place to play football at that stadium.
It was
combination baseball and football.
Baseball field, yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
Well, folks, we got the Philly sports guy joining us. How you doing today, Pags?
Good morning, guys. How are you?
Good morning.
Okay, Pags, I'll let you do it. I saw Pags all over Facebook with their Union City soccer team there. They won something out there. I'm not sure what it was. But what's going on with the soccer team, Pags?
They won again against New York, which is what we do a lot. It's talking about combination fields. It's talking about combination fields. This was baseball / soccer field at Citi Field, which is what's going to happen anyways, because we're going to beat the Mets a couple of times. This was just the start of Philadelphia beating New York's butt.
Pags, you got a closer that is pretty good over there called Kimbrel. He's got his, I think Jack said 400 save. You never talk about Kimbrel over there when you come on, Pags. Did you hear me?
Say again?
I said you had a pretty good.
I did hear it.
Okay.
So he got his 400. It's probably 401 now because they did win again last night. They beat him 2-1. I got to imagine he saved that one as well. What's there? Only 8 pitchers to ever get 400 saves.
Yeah.
So I guess that's something to talk about. Right? He's only been here this year, so it's about time that they've actually had a closer who can close games out. The last time we had one of those who was able to close out games without really having any issues, his name was Lidge. And he went 49-0, and they won the World Series.
Of course they did. Harden and the 76ers are at a fork in the road. Should they keep him or let him go, Pags? What's your thoughts?
I would say Harden.
You say
I
what?
don't think he should come back. Yeah, I think that he shouldn't come back.
You know what it is?
Embiid wants him back.
No, it's a tricky signing. If he doesn't come back, any little chance they have of winning a championship are gone. They don't have the hope of winning a championship. But if you sign him to the big deal, you're going to regret it. You absolutely are. He's going to break down. He's not going to be the James Harden of old. It's going to be a mistake. I mean, if there was a way to sign him for like 1 year, maybe 2 years at most, okay. But I definitely wouldn't. Even 2 years, I don't like it. Okay? It's just James Harden's skills in decline. He could turn it up and have a big game now and then. He had a couple of big games in the playoffs against the Celtics, but that's about it. There's no consistency anymore.
Didn't it seem like that the team played better when either it was Harden or it was Embiid, but not necessarily together?
I agree. I would agree. I agree. They did play better when Embiid was out at the beginning. And then when they're just like you said, when they both were in there, and then when Embiid called out the rest of the guys, but Embiid had 15 points, and Harden had 16 in that last game. Or he had 9, didn't he? He had 9.
Yeah, it was something even less than that. I think that I don't think you can sign Harden. And you're talking about signing him for 1 year. Well, guess what? He had still another year left on his contract that he's opting out of.
Pax, let's put it another way. Do you think the 76ers are going to re-sign James Harden?
I sure hope not.
Not what you hope, what you think they're going to do, Pax.
I don't think they do. You can't do a 4-year deal with Harden. You cannot do it. And if that's what he wants, he can go get it somewhere else.
Yeah.
I mean, it would set back the franchise in the process a decade.
Let me ask you this question. I had a question for him on did you see what Jimmy Butler said about Tobias Harris? That you picked Tobias Harris over me a couple weeks ago during the series when they were
he used Tobias Harris as the name. Right, yeah, he used Tobias Harris. I mean, there was never a choice of Tobias Harris over him.
Yeah.
So he's using that name. That was never a decision that was made.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Peg,
he didn't like the coach. He didn't like Brown. And they chose Brown over him. They didn't choose. Okay. They didn't choose, and that was a bad decision.
Yeah.
Pags, you mentioned that Embiid and Harden couldn't play together. We said the same thing about Embiid and Simmons. Do the 76ers have an Embiid problem?
I don't know. You're hold on. You're comparing Simmons. Oh, he couldn't play with Simmons. No, Simmons couldn't play with anybody. We found that out. So I don't think it has anything to do with Embiid.
Well, I'm saying that's what they said about Embiid and Simmons at the time when Simmons was playing good, that they couldn't play together, spacing on the floor, all good stuff, and now we can't play with Harden either.
So, in other words, Pags,
I didn't say he can't play with Harden.
Pags, Mac is suggesting maybe Mac is playing devil's advocate, saying maybe the Sixers should give Harden the 4-year deal and trade Joel Embiid. That's what Mac is, kind of inferring. What do you have? What's your opinion
Jack,
on that?
Don't be silly.
No, what he's asking is, there's something that's not going right with those two, and I'm not saying that it's either one's fault. And it might have been Doc Rivers, the scheme he was running, because if you saw it, Garnett said that Doc Rivers was an issue even when they won a championship. So, and I always thought Doc Rivers was an issue. I wasn't impressed with his adjustments.
I agree.
I agree with
that. I agree. As they're looking for a coach right now, I want to see somebody, and I guess that's what Harden's waiting for. They got to hire a coach before the end of the basketball season when Harden can officially opt out, because he may not officially opt out. That's what we're waiting on. I mean, obviously he doesn't get anything that's said right now is all crap. You know what I mean? Because the season ain't over yet.
The perfect coach, I mean, assuming Jay Wright wouldn't take the job, and you never know, would be Kenny Atkinson. He's a no-nonsense coach with the Nets. They were successful. He was Steve Kerr's, bench coach.
How many championships did he win?
Well, he didn't get the coach long enough because Kyrie.
Oh, okay. So he didn't win a championship. He didn't win a championship. That's that no-nonsense coach from the Nets. He didn't win any championships.
He didn't have a chance, really.
Oh, okay. So he's a great coach. He's a great coach. I can tell.
Look, championship coaches are being fired. Milwaukee fired, their coach. Toronto fired their coach, Nick Nurse. Those guys recently won championships and were let go.
Right.
So it's musical chairs. Even Doc Rivers, he has a decent chance of getting the Portland Trailblazer job. Now he's being recycled.
Portland's not open.
Wait a second. Wait. Maybe I confused it with Phoenix.
Yeah.
Right.
Monty Williams.
Yeah, he's on the short list.
My mistake. My mistake with Phoenix. You know why I said Portland? I'm thinking of Damian Lillard because rumors are going around that it's possible Portland would consider trading him, and his name has been linked to the 76ers as a potential team. The Sixers would have to give up Maxey and Harris. Harris wouldn't be a problem for the Sixers to give up, but I know the Sixers would hate to give up Maxey in any deal.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I agree.
So, Pags, in Philadelphia Eagle news, Nakeem Dean is ready to play this year. Last year he sat out, redshirted kind of. What do you think? Yeah, Nakobe. It's a Philadelphia.
Okay, we got to get you some phonetics. If you're going to say these names, you can't be crushing them like that.
Nobody cares about the Eagles' names.
You know what? No, wait. Let me say something about.
Well, especially when you can't say their names right, and they can't care about them. But
that's right. It's Jimmy Dean's brother. That's all I know. He's not. He's going to play this year, Pags. What do you think how that's going to affect the Eagles' defense?
I don't know. He won a national championship, and he was the leader of that defense when he played, and won that national championship. He's a little undersized, but I think that doesn't matter. He's just got a nose for the ball, and I think that when you start doing those things, when he played, he didn't play very much, but it seemed like every play he was at, he would get to the ball. And I think that's a big deal when you're playing middle linebacker. It doesn't matter how big or small you are. If you can get to the ball, then you're gonna be bad.
I mean,
I think it matters how big you are when you play middle linebacker, Pags. I see Dean as maybe a safety linebacker hybrid is what I think they'll use Dean as.
Well, he's going to be the middle linebacker. He's probably going to be the one calling the defenses.
Let me tell you something. I have a philosophy. During games, teams don't need mentors. They need leaders to step up. And during the Super Bowl, Sixers didn't have a leader to step up as they were faltering on defense, on their defensive side of the ball. They badly needed a leader. You're not going to get it from a rookie. And Dean is basically a rookie because he was out most of last year. So this year, as much as a leader as he was for Georgia's championship team, he's not going to step in and become a leader of the Eagle defense. But I think during games...
What are you talking about? What are you talking about? I don't understand. Because he wasn't out. He just was learning a position. He had other people. And now you're saying that he's not going to step in as the leader? You know what you're even talking about? You got too many punches to the head there, Jack. I mean, come on now. Let's speak realistic.
No, all we heard about his leadership when he got drafted. Oh, he's undersized, he's small, but he'll make up for that with all his great leadership. He was the leader of Georgia's, defensive unit. That's all we heard, okay? And during the Super Bowl, defensively, the Eagles badly needed someone to rally that team for them to step up. They faltered. I don't care how many good players you have, but when things are going bad, someone's got to step up. Jim can vouch for that on the defensive side of the ball because he's been in games where the team is just going down little by little, and you badly need a leader to rally that team. You badly need one. He doesn't necessarily have to be your best player, even though that helps. And the Eagles were lacking there, but Dean can't be that right now because of his inexperience. There are rare exceptions, like a Micah Parsons. He could come in as a rookie and then late on in the season become the lead of the defensive unit, but that's very rare.
But it can't be Nakobe Dean that does anything like that. He can't come in and, because he's going to be starting from the beginning of the season, he's not going to be able to show any type of leadership skills whatsoever because he's going to be new at that position. That's what you're telling me?
He's okay. He's going to be playing with Jalen Carter, who was his teammate at Georgia, right? And if he gets on Jalen Carter with something, Jalen Carter might look at it as, I'm a better player than you. I don't need you to start trying to lift me up.
What are you talking about? Stop talking. Stop talking. Because you sound ridiculous, Jack. You sound ridiculous. You have it's not making any sense to the words that are coming out of your mouth.
Defensive unit faulted in the second half of the Super Bowl. I mean, that's, come on.
And how much of that was Nakobe Dean's fault?
No, not his fault, but you needed someone for the Eagles to step up. You needed leadership at that point when things were going bad to rally the team.
Hey, Jim, have I let this go on long enough? Have I let this go long enough, or do you want me to cut it? All right, okay, that's good enough. Hey, Pax, let's get to a little hockey. NHL playoffs. The Stars, they beat the Knights. Now they're up 3-2. The Stars got a chance doing what the Celtics are on the brink of doing.
No chance about that.
Every game except the last one.
I think they did exactly what I expected them to. They lost that last game, but you could tell they were not playing the same way. I think they are flirting now with, they didn't play really well yesterday, and obviously Dallas won that game. But I think that they heard what I was talking about and that they are trying to have Bobrovsky cool off. I think they deliberately didn't give it their all. And that's why I think they win game 6. I think they win game 6.
I think the Stars have an opportunity. First of all, they're going to get their captain back in the next game, and it is in Dallas. Each of them have one in opposite courts or things. I think that it's going to be tied up, but I still think that the Knights have the advantage going back to Las Vegas for the last game. But you got to remember, 3 games have been in overtime. This was the first game that wasn't in overtime. And that's the thing you got to look at, which is unusual. How many people do you see play 3 overtime games back to back to back? That was incredible.
Let me tell you something about with athletes. I bet the way they're thinking, best 4 out of 7. You know what's crossing the mind of the Las Vegas night players? We got to travel to Dallas. As much as losing the game, they're ticked off that they got to get on the plane and go to Dallas and go through that inconvenience. Okay, and they wanted to win game 5. They didn't want to have to travel back to Dallas. You don't want that.
I disagree.
Dallas has. They have Nakobe Dean. They're bringing him to the game.
To rally him. Yeah.
They brought him. They brought him with Mike Tyson and Ric Flair and all those other guys that they.
Yeah, they had stars.
So I mean, but
don't listen. Don't listen to Jim, because Jim bases his football predictions on travel. He says, if they got to go from the West Coast to the East Coast, I can't pick them to win. He does that all the time.
Jim, why is he attacking you? Why is he attacking you?
No, Jim is always talking about the travel issue.
He was
all
there
the time during the
Butler
NFL
said
season.
The Jets are going to finish 4th in the
Butler picked the Jets. Bags. Butler picked the Jets to finish last. It's like, I don't know. I have no idea.
Jack was upset over that.
All you guys are having an off day today.
Oh my God! What did you think, Pags? What did you think about the game last night? Miami loses to Boston on that dramatic last play. Do you think they should have pressed the inbound pass? Do you think they should have covered the guy cutting better? I mean, it was a fluke play. I mean, the ball came right to the guard, cut into the basket. Is there anything that Miami should have done different?
I mean, I didn't see it until after it had happened. I'll be honest. I think that didn't I tell you they thought Boston was going to come back in this series? They thought that Boston was going to, make this a really big series. I can't say that Boston is going to win it because I know that Miami is going to play a lot better in Game 7. I think in total, I think that Butler had a poor game. If he was any bit like the Butler of earlier in the series, this series would be over already. So, I mean, Boston played a really good job on defense on him. And I think the chips fell where they did. You know what I mean? I think that's what happened there. It's just, he threw it up there. The fact that he was able to get the rebound back up there and still get it out of his hands with no time, with still a tick on the clock, was amazing. I think that actually probably says something more to the guy who started the clock. That guy in Boston better be faster on that draw. That 1/10 of a second was a big difference. But
yeah, it was. So hey, you and Jack do agree on something today. So we did.
Yeah, we did find out something you agree on.
Yeah, you do agree on that anyway.
What you do agree on.
Jim, let's
what that the sound that the timer guy needed to be a little bit fast on the draw.
Well, that was, there's really nothing that could have been done to stop that from happening. It was, it happened, and there was really nothing that Celtics could do about it, or Miami could have done about it. Sorry. Let's get to a little Cowboy news with Jim Jeffcoat here. Mike Gallup has been working with the slot receivers. They might be trying Gallup on the slot this year.
Yeah, he'll be the number 3 guy. Cooks will be number 2, and obviously 88 will be number 3. I mean, number 1. So that's how they're going to use it, Brendan Cooks. And I don't think they're going to – everybody's saying Hopkins will be a Cowboy. I highly think that it will happen. I don't think Hopkins will be a Cowboy.
Yeah.
Everybody's saying that. But I think there's some more going on than we know about DeAndre Hopkins, because they also said he'd be a Philly too.
Well, they have him going everywhere.
Yeah. But there's something going on.
I mean, Philly doesn't make sense because they don't have the money, and like, what are you gonna put him in the slot? I don't think so.
That's my point.
So
I mean, he doesn't fit. He does not fit for what they're doing. Yeah. And same thing. Buffalo doesn't fit really, because you got problems with Diggs already. I mean, I don't know, but they're saying that Tony Pollard has been practicing. He has been practicing, but you never know, because right now it's OTAs.
Right, nobody's hitting anybody. Yeah, nobody's getting hit.
Yeah,
you have to wait for the scrimmages for that to happen. You got Kelvin Joseph working with the safeties group, so there's talks he might move to safety, Jim.
It's a possibility, but I think Joseph will be gone. I don't think he'll be around. When they made the trade with Indianapolis Colts for the cornerback, I think they're going to move on from Joseph, because they got the young guy from Fresno State here. I think it's Deron Blair, that can use him as a backup guy or a slot guy.
All right. And the last thing I had with Dallas, they're really impressed with Mozzie Smith to help improve the pass rush and help on the run defense. They say he's got a good ability to break through double teams, Jack.
Like I always say about young players, you got to wait until the fire starts. And when they're in the fire, it's different than this stuff. This is pajamas Olympics. Nobody knows what they're going to do when they get busted in the mouth. Mike Tyson said it great. When you get blood in your mouth, it's a little different than everybody telling you that you're this and that. It's a little different when somebody's hitting you.
Well, speaking of hitting a little bit, with the special teams maybe being compromised with the new rules, I think Mac mentioned on another show, well, certain special team players aren't going to make it into the NFL now because it's compromised. And I counted saying, well, the NFL teams have to fill up their roster. That means more position players going to get in. And let's be honest about it. Every special teams player is a position player, but some of them aren't good enough to stick as position players. So they increase their value on special teams. So I just think it's going to be flip-flopped. If anything, it gives them an incentive. They better be a lot better in their position because they can't count on being a special teams player.
You're going to still have a need for special teams.
You will, but it'll be compromised a little bit.
Not to the point where you won't need some guys that are really good special teams players. Maybe,
but it could be. But Jim, could it be a difference maker, guys? And final cuts, where coaches are looking at a special teams player now, if he's not an elite special teams player, and a position player, who someone who's a little better as a position player, they might give a little lean towards the position player now, where they would have the special teams player before. Might in some cases.
That's always a possibility, Jack, that you can. Unless you're in that one that's going to be on multiple special teams, then you always have that possibility of not being in.
Well, Jim played special teams before he started. I mean, Jim was a great player. He was taken in the first round. I mean, I remember the Giants playing all their veterans on special teams at one time. I don't think a lot has changed. And the biggest change is coming out to the 25, which I think is a big mistake by the NFL.
I do too. And obviously every special teams coach was against it, and they still did it.
Yeah.
And talking about safety, there's a lot of other issues they got to help with safety. But, they're changing the game. Just like I agree with Andy Reid 100%. This is becoming flag football. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's not the same football that we grew up watching.
That's the truth. So I guess our Pro Bowl will be the Pro Bowl when, they put on the flags, and I guess they're ahead of their time. I don't know.
That's it.
So I got a question. I got a question for Jim. What type of record and how far do the Cowboys need to go for the coach to remain at the end of this year?
He's got to win at least, to me, I'm looking at it at 11 games. If he doesn't win 11 games, he's gone. And it's going to be tough.
Well, so even he wins 11 games and he gets knocked out of the first round, he's still there.
I think he would be, but he's got one more year left on his contract, but they're not going to give him a new contract because now it is on him. And I've said this before. He's on the clock because everything that he wanted, he got. I mean, he's got the coaches that he wanted. He's got the opportunity to be the OC, and he wasn't very successful as the OC in his last couple of years in Green Bay. And now he is calling the shots. He is truly calling the shots.
Jim, I don't think it's regular season wins. I think it's how deep the Cowboys go into the playoffs because there's going to be tremendous fan unrest if they get eliminated early in the playoffs. The Cowboys were 12-5 the last 2 years, and Cowboy Nation isn't happy right now. And that unhappiness is just going to grow if it happens again this year.
And that's true.
What are you talking
I agree with
about? Every time I talk to Cowboy Nation, they say they're about to win the Super Bowl.
It's going to be things that happen. The thing that's happening is that I think the receiving core is going to be better. But the problem is the running backs. And they're guaranteeing that Pollard will be healthy. But if you look at Pollard's size, that's going to be difficult to play 17 games. And I'm realistic about it. And you're telling me that a rookie, a Deuce, whatever his name is going to be the answer?
Got Ronald Jones, he's the answer.
Ronald Jones is not the answer.
Yes.
He's never been. And Ronald Jones is actually a Texas kid. He's from the DFW area. And you said, well, he won 2 Super Bowls. But was he significant in winning those Super Bowls? And that's the question.
Part of the team, Jim.
I
don't know.
I think he was a key contributor to the Buccaneers winning it.
Yeah. And that's the thing you got to look at. And they're saying they're going to run the ball more. And we'll see. We'll see if they run the ball more. Because McCartney is, a lot of that offense is they'll take a 5-yard pass because it gets them to 2nd and 5. And there's a lot of that West Coast stuff. And they look at it like that. If they get the opportunity to shorten games, and that'll give them a little bit of an advantage there. But they got some things they got to correct. And like I said, with Moxie Smith, they're talking he might be a great player, but he's not going to be he's a run player. And that's what they said. That he's a big guy, he's strong, but he also, the way the system is today, they don't hit. So how it's harder when you're up front and getting hit and punched in the mouth. I told you that about the defensive tackle from Philadelphia. He could be good, but they got to get used to this speed and the physical nature of playing the NFL. All these guys do.
Yeah, definitely. Guys, let's do our AFC West picks. Pags, if you get your picks into, you weren't ready for this, but we were working on this from last week. So the AFC West standings, where you think they'll finish, and a little bit why. What do you got, Jim?
I got Kansas City, San Diego, Oakland, and Denver.
Whoa.
Any reason why, Jim?
San Diego and Oakland?
Kansas City, San Diego, Oakland, Denver.
You mean Los Angeles?
Yes, Los Angeles.
And Las Vegas.
You mean Las Vegas.
Las Vegas. I'm old school.
One of those. Jim, so why?
I think Kansas City is still the best coach team, and I think they got the best quarterback. I think Mahomes and what he had to play with last year. I mean, he got guys that probably. I mean, he didn't have. Everybody thought without Tyreek Hill, it wasn't going to get done, and it got done. And I still think they have a significant advantage in the AFC West. I think LA, the Chargers, will be better with Herbert and everything, and he's getting comfortable in it. They made the playoffs last year for the first year under Herbert, and I think he is a quality quarterback. It's just, and they got Eckler. They agreed on some incentives for him, so that'll help them. The only thing is the offensive coordinator going to try to make this the same thing with the Cowboys, a little bit more pass than run, and to take advantage of Herbert's skills. Yeah, I hope not, because that's going to hurt him. And I think Las Vegas, the only reason I picked them third is because I still think Denver, even with Peyton, has some issues. They don't have a lot of talent. They're probably the least talented team. And you say, well, they got Russell Wilson, but they still have, and they have some receivers, but they still got a ways to go. So I think Las Vegas and Denver, you can flip-flop them anyway, but I think they're a couple years away.
Jack, what do you think?
Yeah, this is just tentative. Okay, this doesn't count until we make our final predictions before the season. It's just tentative. If this is going to count, I'm not making the predictions because it's kind of ridiculous now.
Jack's going to take the poison and go home.
Before training camp happens.
Jim, listen to this. He wants us to predict the AL in the beginning of the year, 162 games, and we got to stand by this. But when it comes to this is tentative. What do you got, Jack?
Well, I'll go with Kansas City tentatively to win the division. There's always the danger of a Super Bowl hangover, but you'd think they'd be the team to beat. The Chargers second. I give the Chargers actually a reasonable chance of winning that division. They struggled last year, yet they made the playoffs in an off season for them. They weren't protecting Justin Herbert last year. They've got to do a better job of doing it this year. I think Justin Herbert is one of the best players in the NFL. Getting Eckler back is great. They've got a pretty good defensive unit there. I'll go with Denver third. Russell Wilson will be better than last year. He can't be any worse. With that said, I think Sean Payton is a difference maker. I think coaches are difference makers, maybe more so than players. And Sean Payton's been too good a coach over his whole career for him to just come in and then to have like a 6-11 record and be in last place. I think he's too good a coach for that. You said they'll flirt around 500 or so on. And Denver's got a good defensive unit. The Raiders strike me as being the dysfunctional group. You know, something about them. And
Raiders have always been dysfunctional.
yeah, Jimmy G is their quarterback. How often is he going to be on the field? Do you really think Jimmy G is going to play the whole season straight through like the other quarterbacks? I mean, Jimmy G is a bit of a win.
You got to remember, the Raiders have Devontae Adams and Josh Jacobs.
They had them last year, didn't they?
Yeah.
Devontae Adams is probably ticked off. Consider this. He had Aaron Rodgers his whole career. And then last year, at least he had his college quarterback, Derek Carr. And now he has Jimmy G, who isn't a stretch-the-field passer. He's more of a game manager. And Devontae Adams needs more, of a stretch-the-field passer than he does a game manager. So he's not likely to thrive with Jimmy G there unless Jimmy G makes him the main focus the majority of the time. So I just don't like this Raider team. They just seem to be dysfunctional. I wonder if they have a really bad year, I wonder what becomes of Josh McDaniels, whether the owner Mark Davis moves on from him or whether they have a great relationship and he plans on seeing it out with him.
Well, he's going to be under a lot of pressure because the new minority owner is going to look at him and say,
that's what I was just going to say. Brady has nothing to do with that.
All those Super Bowls.
Tom Brady. Oh,
terrible.
You wonder if there going to be any dynamic? Listen, is there going to be any underlying dynamic with the relationship with Brady and Garoppolo? And if Garoppolo's struggling, does Brady have Mark Davis's ear? Or Josh McDaniels, more importantly, maybe Josh McDaniels there, because Josh McDaniels and Brady were pretty close. But then again, Garoppolo had to be close with McDaniels during their years in New England together.
Hey, Jack, can we get our picks in too? What do you got, Pags? Jack.
You want analysis, right?
Yes.
I definitely take Chick-fil-A over McDonald's, and then Burger King is in my third list. I mean, it's like I don't know what Jack is even talking about half the time anymore. I think Kansas City's still.
Go ahead.
I got Kansas City being number one and Los Angeles being number two. I think that they remain the same. I kind of agree with the Denver and Las Vegas flip-flop. It doesn't matter which one's going to be. I think between them, they won't have 8 wins. I think that they are both like just train wrecks. And I think although you're going to see better play from the quarterback position in Denver, you're not going to see good play in general from them. And I just don't think, I think when Peyton comes back and it's like all of a sudden it's like, okay, we got it. It's just going to be like everything that was back in New Orleans. It doesn't work that way. So I don't think that they are going to be as good as everybody thinks they are just now because they got Peyton.
No, why not, Pags? Look at the difference Doug Peterson made with the Jacksonville Jaguars. When you have a quality coach, he does elevate the program.
Right. But they had nowhere to go but up, and they were in probably one of the worst divisions in the league. Now you've got one of the better divisions in the league, and you've got a bad team with a new coach. It doesn't, the fact that you got a better coach may equate to 1 or 2 more wins, but it will not equate to all of a sudden turning everything around. No, you got a quarterback who's on the underside of his career. I think there's too much going on. Maybe if they got DeAndre Hopkins. Maybe they'll win an extra game or two.
Well, let me give you my picks here. Of course, I got Kansas City. That's easy. 12-5. Still the best quarterback and tight end in the AFC anyway. And really good role players. Defense always gets better during the postseason. San Diego, I got him in second, of course. Great young quarterback. Re-signed, as you mentioned, re-signed the running back. Good defense. They might finish first in a couple divisions in the AFC. They got a pretty good team. I like Denver this year. I like Sean Payton, disciple of Bill Parcells, old school football. He's got him lifting weights right now, training, talking about phases. Russell Wilson looks better conditioned than he did last year, seems more focused. He doesn't have his own office anymore. That's important. And I listen, I just don't like the Raiders at all. I'm with you.
You know that's a lie. He does have his own office.
Well, maybe at home, Pags. But anyway.
Matt, you made one comment about Sean Payton, and I spoke highly of Sean Payton a moment ago, but this isn't the reason why. You're saying he has them lifting weights. What do you mean? They won't lift weights on their own to work out. I don't get this.
If you saw the condition that their quarterback was in that last year, that Wilson was in, he came in overweight and heavy. I mean, that's not going to happen this year. This team's going to be fit. They're going to be strong. They're going to be there. That's what, I was reading what Sean Payton was doing. That's what he's going to do this year to the team. It's going to be a lot more tougher than it was last year.
Yeah, but every team in the NFL at this time is conditioning. They're not conditioned. They're getting prepared for the season. So
no doubt, Jim. But there are some.
I like Sean. I've worked with Sean, but I just don't think he makes that much of an impact.
Oh, I do. I think coaching makes.
You're going to have to do it.
I think. Listen,
who they have.
Look at the Raiders. I think coaches makes a huge difference in the NFL, and I'm ashamed of you saying it doesn't. I mean, coaching.
What I'm saying is you got Jerry Jeudy, and you got the other kid receivers, but who's going to run the ball? Who's going to block? Because that was their biggest issue last year is their offensive line.
Because Jim, there wasn't organized. It wasn't focused. Listen, I ain't saying Denver's going to playoffs. I think they make a step this year. And just the attitude and culture alone is going to be totally different than it was last year.
So I think they make a step into doo-doo, because I think they're going to stink.
Well, that's your opinion, Pags, not mine. I think that.
Hold on. My opinion last year didn't matter either, but guess what? I was right.
About what, Pags?
About Denver.
About the AFC East. Pags did say it was over.
About the AFC West. I thought that the AFC West was going to be weak.
AFC West. Yeah, he did say that.
Yeah, Seattle. Seattle sucked, and
I didn't talk about the NFC West. I didn't talk about the NFC. I talked about the AFC, where you guys were talking about how all four teams could make the playoffs. I told you that they were going to stink.
Man. The Chiefs in San Diego just stunk up the whole league last year. Anyway.
No, but I was right. And I said that there was no way that all four teams were going to make it. I said your Hall of Fame quarterback was going to stink. And what happened? PU. Well, you could smell it all the way from here.
Good, he stank. I think that had a little to do with the coaching too. Anyway, Jim, I got your Raiders finishing last. They'll be lucky to win 7 games this year.
They won't win 7 games.
No, 6 games at the most. Their coaching is no good. They got problems. Jimmy G. I mean, that's your starting quarterback. I don't think he's going to last the season. I think they're going to hire a new coach next year. That's what I think is going to happen to the Raiders.
Wow. So Josh McDaniels will probably be done.
Yeah.
So Josh McDaniels will be back at New England, I guess, and Bill O'Brien will get a head coaching job somewhere.
Hey, you know what? Let me ask this question, Jim. The Raiders have a terrible season.
Yes.
And they give you a call. You interested in that coaching job?
No. It's only it's a mess there. It's a fire there.
And that's what I kind of think. It's like
what happens is, and you could disagree with me, I think it starts from the top and how that organization is run. I really do.
I agree 100% with that. 100%. It's a Davis problem.
Yeah, and it's the whole organization it's not run right, and you see.
Would Al Davis have done things differently than his son?
Of course.
Sort of like the Stein.
Well, wasn't Al Davis the one that advocated for Jamarcus Russell?
I'm not sure, Jack.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? And everybody's allowed to make mistakes. You know what I mean? I don't have a problem with that. But
At least the Raiders have an attitude that they want to win. Maybe they even have an attitude that they expect to win this year. Maybe that's
how do you know that? How do you know that?
I know. I'm saying maybe. I don't know that. But the Arizona Cardinals, we don't mention them. We've mentioned DeAndre Hopkins a few times. By the Cardinals moving on from Hopkins, isn't that kind of like throwing the towel on this season, like they're tanking it or whatever? I don't mean tanking it deliberately, but they have very low expectations, the Cardinals, if they're going to move on from Hopkins.
How much did Hopkins play last year?
Well, he was hurt, but the point is...
He wasn't hurt. He was suspended. Got suspended for PEDs.
So, I mean, if he's not going to contribute, moving on from him, I don't think so bad.
Like I said, there's more to this story than we know. Because you don't give up, what, they got a $21.5 million hit on their salary cap?
Well, and they didn't trade him before the draft. You'd think they would try to get something, even like 1 5th-round draft choice, just something in return. But maybe the Cardinals overplayed their hand, thinking someone would bite. There'd be a demand on Hopkins, and they could get a little more, than they normally could by waiting. But
I do remember this. What Bill O'Brien said is that they were concerned. That's why they traded him to the Cardinals. It's his off-field issue, not his on-field production. I remember that a couple years ago.
Yeah. Jack, boxing news. Luis Lopez stops Michael Conlon.
Right. I saw that fight, and what a big disappointment for Michael Conlon. Michael Conlon was the Olympian who made headlines. He wound up with the bronze medal. He got eliminated in a bad decision in the Olympics, and he gave the finger to the judges. So I guess that went viral, and they like that. And Michael Conlon, popular fight in Ireland, promoted by Top Rank. He's lost 2 fights, both in title fights. And it's once in a while someone's destined to be champion and they never quite get there. Howard Davis Jr. would come to mind in the 76 Olympics. And that's going to be the case of Michael Conlon. He fought Lee Wood about a year and a half ago, and he got stopped, knocked out of the ring in the last round. But it was the fight of the year. So he took something out of that. A big disappointment, but at least it was fight of the year. And later he fights a fighter, Luis Alberto Lopez, a belt holder. And Lopez is throwing these long looping punches and these wild uppercuts, but he was too strong for Conlon, and he knocked him out cold in the 5th round, basically. And that fight yesterday, to me, that's a career ender. You get to a point where you're taking too much punishment and 2 devastating KOs in 3 fights. I mean, if I have to compare Michael Conlon to a football player, he's the Tua of boxing with the concussions. Personally, if I was Tua, I would get out. This is just me because of what he's been through. Right. And I think that's the case of Michael Conlon. You haven't won a world version of the world title, and if you had 2 shots, you could regroup, try to come back. I don't think it's worth it with the toll it could take on him. And there's a good chance he won't get there. It's a big disappointment for Michael Conlon and his followers, but it's what it is.
Uh-oh. Hey, Jack, what happened with Davis's stuff with the law?
With what? With the law?
Yeah, Davis.
Gervonta Davis. Yeah, he served. He got a sentence, 3 months probation, 200 hours of community service.
Okay.
A friend of mine put it the right way. Gervonta Davis tends to get in trouble. It doesn't mean he's a mean person, but some young men just tend to get into trouble. 3 years probation. He's on the house arrest for the 3 months, by the way, so he'll be clear on that. But once he gets
he's
out,
going to fight soon, isn't he?
No, they have nothing signed. It's going to look very bad for him to sign for a fight while he's under house arrest. But he can sign for one when he's on probation. But he's a young man who goes to the nightclubs with his friends. Is he really going to keep out of trouble for 3 years? When you're on probation, you better behave yourself. And that's the case with that. I want to mention another fight yesterday that took place also with a Britisher. Lee Wood beat Mauricio Lara. And that had implications because Mauricio Lara got his reputation with 2 fights with Josh Warrington, knocking him out once, and the other was a no contest. And he knocked out Lee Wood last time. Lee Wood had a rematch clause, and he was discouraged from exercising it, but he insisted on having that rematch. And on the rematch, he controlled the fight yesterday. Mauricio Lara gave up his belt, his featherweight belt, world title at the scales. He came in way overweight, which indicated he wasn't really ready. And Lee Wood knocked him down and did a great job of outboxing him, over the distance.
All right. Thanks, Jack. So that's pretty much your boxing report here that we give you every week on This Week in Sports.
Crawford and Spence, like Jim was saying, July 29th.
Arena.
I'm getting the pay.
The problem is Crawford and Spence is that they're fighting at middleweight, so that's the advantage to Crawford.
No, that's not going to be a middleweight, Jim. Yeah. I don't know. No.
They up the weight and.
What the way? Certain things still got to be ironed out a little, but everything's agreed to. There's still, until you see the press conference, it looks like it's happening. It's been announced. There's that 2% chance it could still fall apart because they still have to agree on a couple of minor issues.
Terms, on the contract,
But
right,
they
folks,
wanted a higher weight for Crawford, and it's
a 2-fight deal, and it's a 2-fight deal.
Yeah, but it's
also
a disadvantage for Spence because Crawford is naturally the bigger fight.
Hey, the best outcome of that is they split the 2 fights and they have a third. That would be the best outcome for both of them.
Yeah, it's $87 in the nosebleed, $8,700 in the nosebleed section.
You're kidding. My wealthy friend wanted to go to the fight and wanted me to join.
Look at
it.
$870.
80. I find that hard to believe. 8,700.
87.
No, it's not 8,700. It's $870.
Yeah.
Oh, 870. Yeah.
That's a lot of money to be in the nosebleed section.
Yeah.
So imagine what it's like on the floor.
Yeah.
It's got to be at least a little higher than that.
I could get a press credential, but they'll put me in the nosebleed section for that one.
That's going to be something. You might as well get pay-per-view on that one.
Yeah, it will do. Yeah. I wonder what the pay-per-view price is going to be on that.
That's going to be what, $139 maybe, Jack?
No. The most they ever went was $99.95, like Mayweather pack.
It'd be worth it.
But I could see them going to $84.95. Something around there. Yeah, for that fight. Maybe 89, 90. Keep in mind.
I thought it'd be a little more.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
All we can do is assume. So, folks, have a great Memorial Day weekend. Enjoy the barbecues. Thanks to Pags, Robert Butler, Keith for coming in on this weekend. And, of course, thanks always to Jim for coming in this week in our sports coverage, and me and Jack on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Love having Jack as my co-host.
No glove fist on Monday night, Memorial Day weekend.
Right. No glove fist for those who should check that out. So have a great Sunday, folks. Take it easy, and we'll see you back here, Mac and Jack, on Friday. Take it easy.
All right. Have a good day.